All right, welcome back, everybody. Everyone has been wondering what is up with the weather lately. We've been having rain. It gets really, really hot. We've been having these weird, flooding advisories and everything like that. So I am bringing in the experts, plural. I got a bonus for you today. We not only bring in our buddy Landon Idlet from the National Weather Service Guam chapter, we're also bringing in a new friend to the program, Jane Marie Wix. She is in Jackson, Kentucky, right, Jane?
That is right. Far Eastern Kentucky in the Appalachians.
Okay. Oh, you know what? First of all, congratulations to Appalachian State. A tremendous Hail Mary victory. I don't know if you were watching the game yesterday. Of course, you are wearing UK blue, so go Cats. But blue seems to be kind of like the operative word there, because even though I guess rain maybe is neutral color, we are getting a lot of the wet stuff. Like recently, we're getting these flooding advisories. We've actually been Landon getting reports of actual flooding in the central areas. Kind of like all of the usual suspects. So we'll bring in Jane because she is an expert in flooding. What causes it? Also, possibly we get into flood mitigation. But how much more of this stuff can we expect over the next couple of days?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at these wet conditions to continue at least another couple of days, at least for the next 24 to 36 hours. We have several features that have been generating this wet weather since really yesterday, continuing through today and then on through tonight and tomorrow morning. That's going to continue. Then it's going to dry up just a little bit, probably Tuesday night, Wednesday, but then we could have another disturbance come through with more showers later in this week. But this is very seasonal. I'm looking at some of the rainfall totals that we've had from previous years. Think back to September 2019. That was September 15th, 2019. I'm going to turn my camera around just a quick bit. This is some of the flooding that happened 3 years ago on September 15th. Remember back in Tumon Bay area, right there through Pleasure Island, all flooded. This is from an 8-inch rainfall that came down on September 15th, 2019. And so most of the island felt these heavy rains back then. So it's very seasonal. Also September 10th, 2018, we had just shy of 10 inches rainfall here at the office. And do you remember what that was, September 10th, 2018? Pop quiz, Jason.
September 10th, 2018.
Yes.
I'm drawing a blank, man.
Yeah, that was Typhoon Mangkhut.
Oh, okay.
Making its way through the region. So we had about 15 inches rainfall over a 2-day period.
That's the day that Avengers Endgame got released in the theater, but no, I was way off.
Yeah. So yeah, very seasonal. I think there was another date that it's not, I think it might be coming right up on its anniversary, but back in 2013, most of the island saw 12 to 15 inches of rainfall on another day with a weak tropical disturbance pushing through. This is the Barcenas housing area back in 2019. You're seeing on the screen, just indicative of the flooding potential that happens down south when we have these heavy showers. And that's what we've been seeing the last several days. And so any additional heavy rainfall that we have come our way will go quickly to runoff because the grounds are saturated right now. And of course, Jane also on camera, I pulled her up with me. She's my counterpart at the Jackson, Kentucky Weather Forecast Office. And we just met, I believe it was last month, in a training course in Kansas City, one of my many trips over the summer. And so I'll let her talk about flooding because she is no stranger to flooding after this summer, numerous rain events causing a lot of problems. But right now the radar is pretty quiet. We're in a kind of a midday slumber on the radar. Nothing much happening, maybe a few sprinkles, a couple drips here and there. But farther to our south, there's a lot more wet weather that's gradually trying to make its way into our area. And so we had a lot of showers coming in from the northwest and also bouncing around the island this morning and pulsing through the CNMI. So we had a number of flash flood advisories in effect for several islands, including Guam early this morning. Most of that is fizzled out, but we're mostly concerned about all of this stuff down to our south. And so we get these little shower cells, even though they may be small in coverage, it's those rainfall rates that we're going to be very concerned about. And right now we're not seeing too much as far as those, let me pull up the rainfall rates right here. Nothing too much to speak of right now, but we do have a couple of hot spots well to our south. So once we start seeing these areas with rainfall rates of 3 or 4 inches per hour, that's where we're going to see those problems. Right now, that's far from the island at this point, but watch out for this afternoon. We could see things start heating up across the area as this broader band of convection approaches. On the satellite, nothing to speak of, at least in Eastern Micronesia. This is the small islands and atoll of Kapinga-Maringi, where they are the only drought area of concern right now. They are at moderate drought, well south of us near the equator, but farther north, that's where all the weather is. And so we're zooming over eastern Micronesia, central Micronesia, and here we are in the Mariana Islands. Just a soupy pattern. That's what we've been dealing with for feels like forever, really, about 1 to 2 weeks. We've had several tropical cyclones pass through the northern islands and zip off towards Japan. No invest areas, no suspect areas for development at this time, with Nanmadol over Japan being the only tropical system that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is watching, and no other active areas in our region. But we are watching this monsoonal flow over well to our west. That's going to be lifting on away from us with Nanmadol's gaining in latitude. We're watching this upper level low. This is circulation, upper atmospheric circulation that's helping to induce some of the showers and thunderstorms over our region. But otherwise, it's just an upper level feature. And then we have this surface trough that's going to be lifting northward over our area in the next 12 to 24 hours. And that's what's going to give us the biggest potential for showers coming up over the next 12 to 24 hours.
So let's go ahead and bring Jane now for her expertise and her insight. Jane, I would love your take, because I'm not sure how much Landon has indoctrinated you into kind of like the layout of Guam right now. But as you can hear from what he was brilliantly saying is the southern end of the island here, we're a 30-mile long by 7-mile wide territory. And the southern end of the island is more mountainous, kind of like not unlike what you have in the Appalachians and everything. But there is where, when we always get like heavy rainfall, and Landon and his crew put out these flood advisories and everything, it's always our friends and our family like down south that really have a cause for concern.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we deal with as well. As far as flooding, I'm probably more the expert on the flash flooding, and that's probably what you all deal with as well.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that if you get rain over a surface, everybody gets the same amount of rain. But when you get rain over a mountainous surface, all of the rain in the mountains is also going down to the valley. So you're tripling, quadrupling, sometimes 10 times as much rain as what they would have got if it was a flat surface. So if you take a lot of the times, most of the people also live in these valleys and in these floodplains because that is where the flat land is. That is the cheapest place to build. A lot of our towns here in Appalachia, they're all in the floodplain. So if you have a lot of water coming down these mountains, they're hitting these tiny little creeks. And I don't know about your all's area, how much water these little creeks can hold, but a lot of times in our area, they're usually running about 6 inches deep. And so our big impact we had, I don't know if you all have heard about it, was a couple weeks ago, or sorry, about a month ago now, we had a massive rain event in Eastern Kentucky. And I'm actually going to share my screen here too. Oh, no, I'm not. But yeah, so we had a massive event where we ended up with 10 to 12 inches, in some places 14 to 16 inches, most of that falling in about less than a 24-hour period. So if you can imagine, I think, did you bring that up there, Landon, the map? Okay, so if you can imagine.
Looking right at Jackson.
There you go. Okay. So all of that where he is showing is mountains, and about where that red dot is and just south got 10 to 14, in some places 16 inches of rain in 24 hours. And like Landon said, we were primed. We were already wet. We couldn't hold any more water. It was all runoff. So all that 14 to 16 inches all went into these tiny little creeks and these tiny little streams. And it caused a wall of water that was rising about 2 feet every 15 minutes. So it was pretty devastating. It looked like tornadoes had gone through, and I'm sure similar in your all's area as well. But that's something we deal a lot with in the mountains, is the flash flooding, but never to that extent. I think that's probably hopefully the worst I will ever see. But yeah, it's just kind of the name of the game in the mountains, because you're just multiplying the amount of rain because it's all washing down into those valleys. And like I said, unfortunately, that's where a lot of people live. That's where a lot of our infrastructure is, and that's where a lot of the impacts are.
Jane, we're in an interesting position here because being on an island, like you said, when a lot of the rain will flow, down from the mountains or the ranges, if you will. Of course, it flows out to the sea because you don't have to go too far here on the island until you get to the ocean. Different situation for you being so much inland. So as far as you mentioned infrastructure, what types of feats of engineering or even like human efforts do you have that when you get those flash floodings and water levels do rise to dangerous levels, what technical systems do you have and what human effort do you have to try and mitigate that?
The answer is not enough. We unfortunately are used to it. So they try, if like a bridge goes out, they try to build a better bridge, a higher bridge. But a lot of times, a lot of these bridges are not publicly owned. Some of them are privately owned bridges. Sometimes there's just not enough funding and they just need to get the bridge fixed. And so they just come up with the fix, and then until the next flood wipes it back out again. So unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of technological changes or infrastructure changes. On the flip side of that, we do end up seeing a lot of grant money come in a lot of time from like Army Corps of Engineers, and they will try for, especially in towns that are right along a river, where they're more flood prone, because a lot of our rivers, it's the headwater, so they're not as big of a river as you think, like the Mississippi or the Ohio River. Like, they're not big rivers, they're tiny little rivers at that point that lead into the Ohio. So they've built flood walls around some towns. They put floodgates in, but when we get these events like where you have this massive amount of rain in a short period of time and it causes the flash flooding, the flash flooding is where we still have issues, because it just depends on where that rain falls and the infrastructure just isn't there to hold it. And then once we get more into the river flooding, that's where the cities themselves can kind of work with, like I said, Army Corps of Engineers to develop more mitigation for more expansive flooding.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jane, again, for your insight into this. And if you're like me and you grew up on the island, or you're like Landon, you're a transplant, but you've been here for a while, you see these things, numerous times over the years, and you always kind of have an idea of when it's going to happen, when it gets, abnormally bad and dangerous. And hopefully, like by the grace of God, it doesn't get too bad and everything like that. But we appreciate the fact that we can network with, learned professionals like you and learn about, how these things are being handled, and maybe even share some of our own ideas and experiences, so that you find folks over there in the bluegrass state, can hopefully not have to deal with what you guys have dealt with recently.
Yeah, I hope to never see it again. Like I said, I thank Landon for inviting me to this. But yeah, the good thing about Guam, hopefully, is that it will be a flash, in the sense it's quick up and then it goes to the sea. It's quick down. But yeah, it's no matter what, doesn't matter where it occurs, Kentucky or Guam, it's still dangerous, and it's still an unfortunate event.
All right. Well, there unfortunately there is no Richter scale for how scary something can get. And like, we're all just human beings, and if the water rises and everything like that, I don't care how tough you think you are and everything like that. That's going to put the fear of God in you. So we got to run, because it is
Correct.
Lunchtime here, and we are running out of time. So Jane Marie Wix with the National Weather Service in Jackson, Kentucky, and of course Landon, I live way over there in Teton. I'm gonna do lunch with Landon later on this week, so Jane, you're free to join us on Zoom, and we can indoctrinate you. We'll give you some island barbecue.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
That sounds great.
Well, by the way, Jane, get Landon talking about like barbecue sauce and everything, and prepare to spend the rest of the afternoon on Zoom, because he will talk your ear off about some good barbecue. He's been all over the place. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Jason.
Absolutely. And thank you for watching Guam. We are out of time. We will see you tomorrow. I'm Jason Salas. Bye-bye. This has been The Hotspot.